So every outside unit needs to sit on a good equipment pad. That doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily install a new one on every install. Sometimes they'll have a good concrete pad or a good existing pad that we're going to keep. That's going to just be based on the job and what was sold for the job. But when we do install a new pad, we want to make sure that we get it installed level and that we are square to the building. Equal measurements from both sides to the structure. So level and square, very important. And then when we set our outside unit, we want it to be centered on the pad, squared on each edge, and then the pump ups underneath, we want them squared with each edge, lined up with one another and in the proper positions underneath the unit on the pad. So we want everything to be good and secure, so it's not going to have a wobble back and forth. So that's normal right there. That's what we want. We want a little bit of isolation so the unit can move as it starts, but everything, there shouldn't be a bang, bang, bang as it goes up or down to indicate that you've got something out of balance. So next we're going to be working on our line set connection to our outdoor unit. In this case we've got a pre-cut hole and we've got some line sets stuck out through the wall. We want a nice, neat line set bend here for it comes out through the wall over here to our unit connection. As you can see, it's kind of a 45 there, so we're going to have to make a bend. Two ways that we could do that. We could either come out with a straight piece of copper and braze on a 45, but the more brazing that we do, the more opportunity we have for a leak and the more opportunity we have to put contaminants in the system. So we want to reduce the amount of braze joints that we have to make. In an ideal situation, we just make basically 4 braze joints, 2 here at the outside unit, 2 at the indoor unit, and then we're done. So we want to try to make some nice smooth bends here from where it comes out the wall over to our unit. Now the 3/8 is going to bend easily, but the larger suction line, that's going to have to require either some hand bending or some mechanical bending to get it over here to this spot, and we'll look at both of those. My first run, I used an old school hand bender, just mechanical. Hook your pipe around it, bend it to the angle that you want. So it gave us a 45-degree angle here. And we'll see how that connects up, and then we'll look at it with some other benders. So one thing we don't want to do is force a bend by hand. This is what happens if you just try to grab your pipe and bend it. You're going to get a bad kink right here. That still has a little room for flow, and so it may still let some refrigerant go through, but these corners are a good spot for leaks, and that's going to greatly reduce your flow and your oil return to your compressor. And so we don't want that. So if you happen to bend one and it kinks, don't be afraid to take it out, cut it out, and redo it. We do not want to leave a piece like this behind a piece of insulation where somebody can't see it. So we want a nice sweeping bend with no kinks. So this 45-degree bend looks like it's going to fit up nicely, and so we want to measure that and cut it. But before we cut, we should sand first before making our cut, so that we don't get sanding debris down inside our copper. And once we get a good clean section, take our tubing cutter and make our cut. Now, one thing that we do that's different than most is that we like to have a liquid line sight glass installed on our outdoor units. That gives us the ability to quickly see how the refrigerant's doing, if there's non-condensables in the refrigerant, if we're low on refrigerant. Has a moisture indicator so we can see if there's moisture or if our freon's good and dry. And so we don't want to fit our liquid line up and then have to cut it. So we're best just to go ahead and put that on first. So I've pre-cut a small piece to go into the liquid line. And then we'll want to, so the liquid line's going to bend pretty easy. We can bring that around here. And as we're bending that. You don't want to bend in the same place over and over again. We're just gonna make a small bend there, and then we'll make a cut on that. So now that we're fitted up, I've gone ahead and removed the valve cores. I hooked up my gauges, but before we solder, we want to apply some heat lock to our valves, especially. Make sure that we don't So the first thing we want to do is purge each line, but we don't at this point know for sure that our inside man has finished his brazing, and so we'll want to check with him, and he either needs to have his lines connected or at least have both ends open so that we can go ahead and purge through here without building up pressure and go ahead and complete our outdoor brazing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move our knob to purge, and that's automatically going to build us up to the correct pressure for purging. And I'm going to do, in this case, I'm just going to do one line at a time. So I'm going to start with just the liquid line, which is my red hose. We're just going to push that through. That's going to purge out any air in that line. And we're going to do the same thing on the suction line. And then before we start to braze, we will move that over to braze. And all that's going to do is just move through enough refrigerant, or enough nitrogen, I'm sorry, refrigerant, but enough nitrogen to keep the oxygen out, because it's the oxygen in the system that causes oxidation. And so by having it on the braze, that's just going to keep a very small amount of nitrogen flowing through the lines. And I have both my liquid line and suction open right now, so we are ready to braze.